Hi, I'm Chrissy.
I'm Jess.
And this is
Financial Progress. Welcome back, Natalia.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about 529s. Is Natalia from Chapina Building Wealth, and she has some expertise in the 529s, and we just want to know more about it. What is it? And all the details.
Yeah, so I love 529s. I actually opened one when my daughter was 3 in 2019, and I have been obsessed ever since, and I try to teach as many people as possible. So a 529 is a type of account where you can invest money for your child. Now, I think the misconception about 529s comes in where people say it's like just for college savings, and it's not. And I want to highlight that it's not just a savings account, right? Like this isn't something that just sits and grows at like 4%. This is an investment account where you put money in the stock market, you purchase either index funds, or usually they'll have like more like target date funds. And your money grows at like 2-3 times that rate, right? Because you're invested in the stock market. So it is a college savings intended, right? So what that means is that when you invest that money, and it grows and it's post-tax, right? Just like a Roth IRA. When you go to take it out and you use it for purposes of education, which also the term education is very wide. It's not very like small as far as what they intend. So it's not just like 4-year universities. It's universities, it's 2-year community colleges, it's trade schools, vocational schools, and it also includes K through 12 private schools now. So it's very broad what you can use that money for. And so as long as it's used for that, then you can pull it out tax free, right? So that's the big gain. You have all these years that the money can grow. And then when you need to pull it out, you won't be charged taxes on it as long as you use it for the intended purposes of the education. And so that's why I love it, because one is I'm big on education. I want to encourage my daughter to go to university, and I don't want student debt to be a reason that she can't or won't go. And so I want to be ready for that. And initially, I was very focused on that part. But this past year, they made it even better. So now, with the new law that was passed for 2024, what happens is after you've had a 529 for 15 years, if you have money in there that you didn't use, you could then roll it over into a Roth IRA for your child.
The whole thing.
Nice.
Up to
Okay.
35,000, I believe, is a
Up to
limit.
35. Yeah, and that's what made
That's
me so
amazing.
nervous, to be honest. My
Mhm.
kids are older now, but I feel like I learned so late in my life. But I was always like struggling with, what if my kids don't want to go to college? And I'm
Yeah.
putting this money in and they don't want to go. What am I going to do? So
Mhm.
I have a 16-year-old now, 15, and then I'm going to be 8. So obviously I had to pay off my debt, so I didn't start it for them. But I was like, if my 16-year-old doesn't want to go, I can roll it to
Yeah.
15. But then if he doesn't want to go, then I could roll it down to my younger one. I was like, but what if she doesn't want to go either? So I was always been conflicted and like debating with myself, like, do I do it or do I just do UGMA or UPMA?
Yeah.
And that's what was my battle.
Yeah. And I think that's always been the main question people have is, what if my child doesn't want to go to college? And the great thing is that 529s have many solutions for that before it ever comes to you just having to take your money out and getting taxed on it. First of all, you don't just lose out on that money, right? There's no such thing as like, okay, your kid doesn't use it, you can't touch it ever, right? Like that's not a thing. And so the beautiful thing about 529s is, one is you can change the beneficiary. Usually it's about every calendar year. I think some have once, some twice, depending on the account that you have, right? And so let's say, like you said, if your oldest doesn't want to use it, you could change the beneficiary to your youngest. If your youngest doesn't want to use it, you could change it for the little one. And then if they don't use it, you could change it for yourself if you still have student loans for yourself, because you can pay student loan debt up to $10,000.
Oh, I
right?
didn't know that either.
Wait,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So
If you have a 529.
yeah.
So wait a minute. Can I open up a 529 for myself right now and pay my student loans with it?
Yes. So you can
Mind blown.
open up a 529, right? And then for yourself and invest and let it grow. And then you can use it to pay up to $10,000 of student loan debt.
Now, is that like 10,000 a year, or is it like for the whole entire?
It depends on the.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead. There's a limit for the.
Yeah. So
the contribution
usually
limit.
what I've seen is per year.
Okay.
But again, it depends on the account and the beneficiary. So let me just explain this. So every state has their own 529.
Okay.
Okay. And so there's also a tax benefit in certain states. So remind me, Jess, you live in New York?
Pennsylvania.
I'm in New
Well,
Jersey,
Okay. And where are you, Chrissy?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Okay. So, and just because this is the first one off the top of my head, but I know New York isn't the only place. In New York, if you have the New York 529 plan, you actually get a tax deduction for any money you put into it. And so in some states, right, you can get a tax benefit from putting money into a 529. That's another bonus. So
Okay.
whenever people tell me, like, because they see the ones all across the state, like, which one should I get? It's like, well, first, does your state have a tax benefit for having the one in your state? Because if they do, obviously you want to go with the one from your state because of the tax benefit is huge, right? That's one thing. So if you're in a state like California who doesn't have a tax benefit, you can get a plan from anywhere across the United States. And so mine is actually the New York 529 because when I was researching over the years, I've always seen that the New York plans have done the best and have been rated at the top. There's savingforcollege.com, there's Morningstar. And so they have lists all the times of the top 529s, and New York is constantly at the top. And so you're looking, for things like low fees, right? Obviously.
Yes.
And so also one other thing that I love about 529s is that you have the option of doing something called ugift.com. So for example, for my daughter, I have always, since she was born, told people, do not buy her things, because one is like, we don't need all this stuff. And second is like, I just don't want all these toys everywhere. Like, I'd rather that you put money for her education. And so for Christmas, for her birthday, for gifts, I just tell people, put money in her 529. And so you give them a code and they go to ugift.com and they can just put the code in for her 529, set up their bank account and do the transfer on their own. You don't have to do a thing. They don't have to give you cash. They don't have to do a check. You don't have to go to the bank. Nothing. They can do literally a direct transfer into the 529. So just with that alone, right? Like, we've grown the account significantly with that, because every year we tell people, do not give her gifts. So just things like that, right? Like, really makes a difference for your ability to save up more. And you can start with as little as like $20. So I started at $25 a month, and you can automate it because at the time I was still in debt, and now I'm at $160 a month. So you can keep going up and up. And the beautiful thing about 529s is a lot of them don't have any limits or have very high limits, like 500,000 a year. Right. So it's big, like the amount of money you can put in there. So I really love them because they're so flexible. It's not like you just have to use it for a 4-year university. You can use it for vocational schools, right? You can use it for other options, trainings, depending on like what the plan says. I would always read the plan details to see what they consider a education expense so that you can make sure. But really, I mean, it's a huge variety of things that you can cover, especially if your child does go, or if they go to grad school, right? Like maybe they go to grad school later on, maybe they don't need it. And here's another thing. If your child gets scholarships, then you can actually take that money out without penalty.
Okay.
Nice.
And 529s are a lot more favorable in the FAFSA than other investment options are, because remember, in the 529, technically the owner is the parent, right? Not the child. So it doesn't become the child's asset. And so in the FAFSA, it has a lot less effect than other investment options. Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff for 529s. I love them, and they make it easy to kind of invest because they mostly have target date funds. And just like when you pick a target date fund for retirement, your target date for this is when your child goes to college or when your child needs the money.
So let's say worst case scenario. None of my kids going to college. I don't have no student loan debt. I have more than 35,000 in that account. What happens to that extra money after 15 years?
Yeah. So let's say that none of your kids go, and like the absolute worst case scenario is that you take that money out with a 10% penalty. That's like the worst case scenario.
That's worst case. Yeah.
Yeah. You still get access to your money. And then, like I said, if you have more than 35,000, you can at least roll over the 35,000, right?
And then take penalty with the rest.
or maybe you gift it to a niece or nephew.
Or like grandchildren,
Yeah,
like future grandchildren.
exactly.
Hmm.
Because
I
I
wish I had this
actually,
conversation a couple years ago.
yeah, so you can change, remember, you can change the beneficiary. Okay. So you could
Okay.
give it to a niece or nephew, a grandchild at that point, right? Like you can change it however you want to whoever you want. And other thing is, a baby doesn't even have to be born yet before you open it. You can open it in your name with you
Mm-hmm.
as a beneficiary when people are pregnant. And actually, my friend did this. We set it up for her, and I love doing this for my friends. It's like setting it up when they're pregnant, and then for the baby shower, just put money in there.
That's
So her
nice.
son, yeah, her son had a 529 before he was even born,
Wow.
which is awesome.
Chrissy, that's
Yeah.
what we're gonna start doing now for gifts.
Right.
You're like,
That's it.
you're like I
Yeah.
always say, I'm like, do you have a 529? Can I do a 529 for you and put money in it?
Oh
Because
man.
I know like you don't need the toys and the clothes or whatever. Most people, luckily we're very blessed, right? We can do the
Yes.
basics. So I think that's more advantageous for the child to have something like that. But I saw this like CNBC, like you know how they do those videos on people and how they do their money.
Mm-hmm.
The girl was talking about how she graduated debt free because she had scholarships, and so what they did was they gave her 529 money to her cousin, right? And just like that impact that could have on like other
Yeah.
people's lives is a huge gift.
Definitely.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Natalia,
Wow.
where were you a couple years ago when I was beating myself up and I was just like, I don't know what to do. This is the
I know.
conversation I needed. I'm just gonna open it. That's it. I'm done.
You, you know what? Like I've kind of blown off 529s because I'm like, oh, I don't have kids. Like, let me not think about it. I don't need to learn about it. But like, I could have been using it for myself this whole time. Like, I have
Yes.
student loan debt right now, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I could have used it for
And you,
myself.
yeah.
Or
Grow
if
some
and
interest.
then if you're growing it, and then maybe surprise happens, you'll be ready.
Yeah, right.
My daughter was a surprise, so
So
yeah,
so I have another question.
yeah.
Let's say someone who already has a teenager. Do
Mhm.
you feel like it's too late? Like what's the, I don't know, age range or something?
I don't feel like it's too late because what if they go to grad school,
Mm,
right? What if they go to law school? What if they go to med school? Like you could still use those funds. I don't think it's too late. And especially if you have more than one child, right? I think
okay.
it's never too late. It really is never too late because what if they graduate with a bunch of debt, right?
That's true.
So
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
I don't think that age is the issue. I think, you have one is you have to give the account time to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So just be conscious of that. But just, know that even if your child is already older, you never know what direction your child is going to take. And if they take a direction where it's going to incur debt on their education or they want to further their education even more, then it's all going to be a huge and great investment for you to start growing that now.
I love this conversation. This
Yes,
is
this is
great.
a great
Yeah.
conversation.
I'm
Yes.
going to ask you a coaching question for myself.
Yeah.
With my 3 kids, would you open one or would you open each individual even with their ages?
So I think that it's on preference for you, right? Me personally, what I would do is I would open one because that way you could put as much money into one place, right? We
Okay.
know that like the more money in one place, the better it's going to compound
Yes.
instead of having it separate. And then as they go, because things might change, you can change the name as needed.
Okay.
If you see a situation where like, you might, maybe your child is saying they want to pursue a doctorate or something, and then you also have the little one, then maybe you want to consider two. But I think ultimately just having one and seeing how the times change is going to be beneficial because you're going to allow more money to go at once. It's going to be easier to manage and you don't have to kind of like do too much movement.
Can you ever separate it at any point?
So you can change 529 plans. And so it's kind of like rollovers, right? So you can always open a new one, maybe roll over a portion into
And then
it.
roll over. Okay.
Yeah.
This is great.
And with
great
honestly,
information.
with the new law, it made it even better, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it was already appealing, but I always had that limit of like, what if we don't use it? But now you have a solution for that. Well, if you don't use it, just keep it open for 15 years and then roll it into a Roth for them. And even that's beneficial. You could keep contributing into it, right? Because you can convert it into a Roth, and that's huge for them. That's
Mm-hmm.
huge for them. Imagine they start with their first career and they have like a Roth IRA at like, I don't know, 50,000 or more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's, I mean, I feel like imagine what we would have done having that kind of a head start.
Yes,
Oh yeah,
definitely.
yeah, for sure.
So I don't think
Um,
it's too late.
it's so funny though. I was doing the research as well on the 529s, and New York was on the top. So I was like, am I allowed to do that? I'm in Jersey, so.
Yeah.
But I think one of our friends also did New York, and she lives in Florida. So I
Mhm.
guess that must be the popular one.
Yeah. And I always say Google the lists and see what's been trending, which other plans have been trending. But New York has consistently been on the top from what I've noticed. And they do have really low fees just from
Mm-hmm.
my review, and it's easy to use. And they have the U gift option. So that's great. Those are all the things I look for, right? Like good investment
Yeah.
options, low fees. Another thing is just like look at your own state's 529 just in case, because sometimes they'll have incentives. So, like, I think in
Mm-hmm.
California, they match you up to $200 when you start it or something like that to get the California
Okay.
529, right? Just things like that. You just look at your states first and see what benefits could possibly be there. Do the benefits outweigh any of the other options? If it's a really bad option as far as like they're all high fee target date funds, then obviously, don't go that route. But just look
Okay.
into them, and like I said, always consider the tax implications of getting the one in your state versus another one. That's where you should start. Yeah.
So I'm convinced already. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, that's amazing advice and great conversation. And I just wanted
Yeah.
to say a little disclaimer that this is just a conversation between friends. This is not financial advice in any way. Please seek the help of a financial advisor before making any financial decisions.
Yes.
It's great financial tips, though.
Yes. Please do
Yeah.
your research and look
Mhm.
into these things
Mm-hmm.
because it's
And please
very,
plan your own retirement first before you start thinking
yeah.
about
Oh,
using.
Yes.
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 Very, very important to
I was
take care of yourself before helping others.
I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you if there was anything specific you want to leave with the audience, but I think that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I know we all want better for our kids, and I know that we all want to give them everything we can. But honestly, like the last thing you want to do is also put on them having to take care of you in retirement. So take care of
Mm-hmm.
your retirement planning first and your retirement investments and make sure you're doing enough there before you even
Before.
think about starting out the 529. And if you really
Yes.
are intended on doing it, okay, maybe start out with 20 bucks. I know sometimes that might make people feel better, like they're doing something for the, and so
Mm-hmm.
put 20 bucks, but focus on your stuff first. Get your own footing and planning in order.
And would you recommend for them to have an emergency fund first before starting theirs?
Here's the thing. I don't always say that having an emergency fund or being completely debt free is a requirement for anything. I think that it is obviously it would be beneficial, but if you are in the works of it, you have a plan, you're automating savings, you're automating the debt payoff, you have a plan that you're following and you're abiding by, then go ahead and get started. I wouldn't say waiting until you have a full emergency fund is the absolute best thing for everybody. I think you can absolutely start and do both. Like if you prioritize your emergency fund and then, like I said, start out with $25 or $50 to the 529. And then once your emergency fund is full and ready, then you can refocus the other money back onto the 529.
This is great.
It
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You don't understand how much I appreciate this conversation.
Yay, I'm glad I could help. And I hope it helps many other people.
Yes. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you recording 2 episodes for us. We really hope that you'll join us again sometime
Of
because this
course.
was
Anytime.
very valuable and I know you have so many more insights to share.
Thank
So
you.
thank you everyone for listening and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.